Welcome to Barbara's Bulletin. I'm your host, Barbara, and we're glad you're joining us today. We've got a packed show for you filled with the latest news from around the world, from Japan to the United States, and from politics to social issues. We'll be covering it all. Let's start with some of the top stories making headlines in Japan. According to recent reports, Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba is preparing to release a statement on World War II after the ruling Liberal Democratic Party's leadership election on October 4th. This move has sparked debate among conservatives within the party, who are concerned that a new statement might rekindle historical disputes with other countries. In other news from Japan, it seems that demand for admission to the Osaka Expo has reached a fever pitch, with scalpers cashing in on reserved tickets being traded at high prices. With only 3 weeks left before the expo closes, many visitors are finding it extremely difficult to snag any remaining tickets. We're also seeing some challenges facing students in Japan, as a recent report reveals that most scholarship recipients are struggling financially due to inflation and rising living costs. This has raised concerns about the effectiveness of the current scholarship system and whether it's providing adequate support for students. Meanwhile, in the world of sports, Japan is making waves with its female athletes, including the country's women's soccer team, which is gaining international recognition. And, in a separate story, we're seeing a growing interest in the United States women's national soccer team as they prepare to take on new challenges. In other international news, there are concerns about the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, with some world leaders warning of potential disengagement from the United States. This has sparked a heated debate among diplomats and politicians, with many calling for continued support for Ukraine. Lastly, we're seeing some significant developments in the tech world, as Apple prepares to reopen its Ginza store in Tokyo. This move is expected to boost the local economy and provide customers with a unique shopping experience. We'll be taking a closer look at these stories and more throughout the show. We'll also be discussing some of the social and economic implications of these developments, so stay tuned for some thought-provoking analysis. That's all for now. We'll be right back with more of today's top news on Barbara's Bulletin. Welcome back to Barbara's Bulletin. We're glad you're still with us as we dive into our middle segment, where we'll be discussing a developing story that's been making headlines across the globe. Today we're focusing on Super Typhoon Ragasa, which has been wreaking havoc in several countries in East Asia. According to reports from reputable news sources such as NBC News and Deutsche Welle, the typhoon has left a trail of destruction in its wake, causing loss of life and widespread damage in Taiwan, Hong Kong, and the Philippines. In Taiwan, at least 14 people have been confirmed dead, with many more still missing after a lake burst caused by the storm sent torrents of mud and water through several villages. In Hong Kong, the storm made landfall early Wednesday, bringing with it powerful winds of up to 195 kilometers per hour and significant storm surges. The city's authorities have reported at least 13 injuries, and many residents have been forced to seek refuge in temporary shelters. Flights, schools, and train services have also been suspended as a precautionary measure. Meanwhile, in southern China's Guangdong province, more than 1 million people have been relocated in anticipation of the storm's landfall. Businesses and schools have been shut down in at least 10 cities across the region, and the National Weather Agency has warned of a significant threat to life and property. It's worth noting that the storm has also had an impact on the northern Philippines, where 3 people have been killed and thousands displaced by floods and landslides. The affected countries are working together to respond to the disaster and provide aid to those in need. As we continue to monitor the situation, it's essential to recognize the severity of this natural disaster and the importance of preparedness and emergency response efforts. Our thoughts are with the people affected by Super Typhoon Ragasa, and we hope that the international community will come together to support them during this difficult time. Stay tuned for our final story of the day, right here on Barbara's Bulletin. Welcome back to Barbara's Bulletin. We're wrapping up today's show with a look at the latest developments in the Middle East. The United Nations General Assembly has been making headlines, with world leaders gathering to discuss some of the most pressing issues facing our global community. One of the key topics on the agenda has been the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. U.S. President Donald Trump addressed the assembly, condemning moves to recognize Palestinian statehood and reiterating his strong support for Israel. However, several countries, including France, Britain, Canada, and Australia, have announced their recognition of Palestine as a sovereign state, citing the need to preserve the prospects of a two-state solution. This move has been met with resistance from Israel, which views it as a reward for Hamas's horrible atrocities. The Israeli government has declared that there will be no Palestinian state and is pushing forward with its fight against Hamas. The conflict has resulted in significant loss of life, with over 65,000 people killed in Gaza, according to local health officials. It's a complex and deeply divisive issue, with valid perspectives on both sides. While some argue that recognizing Palestinian statehood is essential for promoting peace and stability in the region, others believe it undermines Israel's security and ignores the threat posed by Hamas. As we consider this issue, it's essential to approach it with nuance and understanding. The U.S. has historically been a key player in the Middle East peace process, and President Trump's stance on the matter has significant implications for the region. However, it's also important to acknowledge the perspectives of other nations and the Palestinian people themselves. As we move forward, it will be crucial to engage in open and respectful dialogue, seeking solutions that prioritize the safety and dignity of all individuals involved. The path to peace is rarely easy, but by working together and listening to each other's concerns, we can strive towards a more just and equitable future. That's all for today's Barbara's Bulletin. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, stay engaged.